1, 2, 3, 4.
Welcome to the High Performance CEO Show, your exclusive insight into the strategies and success habits of the world's top CEOs. I'm your host, Sebastian Schieke, entrepreneur, mentor, and business angel. Prepare to grow your business, enhance your leadership skills, and thrive in today's world. Let's dive in. Welcome to another episode of the High Performance CEO Show. Today, I'm talking with Alan Cox. And Alan Cox is from Christchurch, New Zealand. He's the founder of EverYellow. And today we talk about a very important topic. We talk about mental health, well-being, and especially in the workplace. Especially after COVID, there's been a lot of change, and this topic is so important it has never been. So, Alan, welcome to the show.
Hey, Sebastian. I'm very happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me on.
Yeah. I mean, your story really caught my eye when I going through the listings on Podmatch where we met. And you focus on mental well-being. And you founded this app, which is used especially in the workplace to help improve mental health. What led you to this very important topic? What's the story behind?
I guess quite a long story, and I'll try and paraphrase it as much as I can. And you're welcome to drill down, wherever. So my story started as a very young child, and a lot of trauma, somewhat abusive. I grew up, had real struggles at school, bullying, all of those kinds of things, problems with my self-esteem, wasn't allowed to take the subjects I wanted to take. I was quite a creative person, and I just wanted to do things like woodwork, art, things like that, history. But I was, by my parents, forced into more of a, technical path, and failed all my exams. When, you start going through life and you start having a proper job, pressure starts to build, and that's when the cracks really started opening up. I had about 20 odd years of depression, some periods, because of some quite serious life events, led me to be in a very, very dark space that, sad to say, multiple suicide attempts. Thankfully, I didn't succeed. And the straw that broke the camel's back really was, and by the way, all through this time, a lot of this time, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm either running a solo consulting gig or running a business with a team of people, and that has all of its extra pressures on top of anything else. And I think especially when you're in a leadership position, you have to come across as kind of stoic and not show vulnerability, or at least that's our perception in the Western world.
I think it's the perception, yeah. I think it's good to show vulnerability, but still you have to be a leader now. You have to go in front and...
Yeah, so the straw that broke the camel's back was when the Canterbury earthquakes happened about 11, 12 years ago now. I came very, very close to being killed in that. That was like a very, very traumatic experience. And that then led to me losing my business because, the business landscape in the whole of New Zealand basically changed. And that then resulted in me having a major mental breakdown. And I was told that because of the severity, it would take about a year or so before I could even think about going back to work part-time. I was in a really, really bad space. And fortunately, however it happened, a program came on TV. It was a BBC program called The Truth About Depression, and you can go and watch it for free on YouTube right now. And I recommend that anyone does that, whether they think they've got depression or not. It's a fantastic program, a little bit dated now. But what that program did is it took me from a place from thinking, I am just the way I am. There is no hope. I'm broken and that's it. What that program showed me is there's actually physical things going on in my head. Just if somebody say got diabetes or something, people understand there's some stuff going wrong in their body, and hence they don't produce insulin, right? And what this program showed me is there's a whole bunch of stuff like that going on in your brain. Your hippocampus is likely to be reduced in size by up to 20-30%. But what that program also showed me was that all of that is reversible. So in the matter of an hour, I went from not understanding, or basically having an understanding that I was unfixable and had no hope, to I am fixable and therefore I have got hope. And I then went on a journey of discovery. I started watching a load of stuff on YouTube about neuroscience, neuroplasticity, psychology, Buddhism. I was reading all kinds of, I've got always got here's my latest 3 books that I'm just getting through here. I'm just basically always consuming content, and even if you just get one nugget of gold from a book, it's worth it. And I actually went from being severely mentally unwell to being like mentally well, like able to go back to work within 3 months. And my counselors, so basically when you're in a severe situation like I was, you have these home visits every day, check that you're okay and you're not in danger, I guess. And they couldn't believe what had happened. They thought I was faking it. And I actually found it a bit amusing, and I said, no, this is what I've been doing. I learned how to meditate, whereas beforehand, I thought meditation is like this hippie woo thing that's not for me. And I made an incredible transformation in a short period of time. But then what I did is I carried on going. A whole new world opened up for me. And I got to see that most human beings are really just, not sure if I like the word, but they're kind of ignorant to what is actually available to them. If only they was to work on their mind.
Oh, yes. I could completely agree to that. Only, I think there's very small percentage of people who actually work on themselves, who realize what is available and make use of that. The rest of humanity, they just accept the status quo. They accept, they think it is supposed to be like that, and they don't try to change. And this is such a waste of opportunity, and they suffer their whole life, going through various states and even depression. And this is why I love your story.
And just so that your listeners are really clear, let's actually put some numbers to it, okay? So if you think of mental health as being a continuum between, say, 1 and 10, where 1, you're as bad as it gets, possibly suicidal. 10, you're, someone like the Dalai Lama or something like that, right? Around the 3 mark is where you transition from being mentally well to mentally unwell. So if you kind of felt that you was depressed and you went to see a good doctor, any good doctor should do an evaluation on you using a number of criteria to work out basically where you are on that spectrum. And if they calculate that you're a 3.5 or a 4, they won't prescribe you any medication, because that, there's like, you're not mentally unwell, you're mentally healthy. You just need to make some life adjustments. You need to, maybe cut back on hours at work, or whatever those things are, whatever the stressors are in your life, you're trying to reduce those. But there's this huge continuum, right, from 3 to 10, and most of the population, like if you think of it like quite a sharp bell curve, most of the population is around the 5.5 mark, so and like if you spread out to see like what the 80-90% of us are, we're between like 4 and 6, right? It's quite surprising. When you're in that, say, 4 to 6 zone, you're on this, you're like a mouse on a mouse wheel that just can't see any other way. You like right in front of you, it's just the wheel coming down in front, right? Yeah. And you're just, every day is the same. Your energy is lower than it could be. Your sleep isn't as good as it could be. Your performance is reduced, your judgment gets reduced, your reactions are more negative than they should be, your evaluations of situations are more negative than they should be. But when you get, I like to call it mental fitness in rather than mental health. But if you get your mental fitness to like say 7 or 8, like it really is life changing. Like I'll give some practical examples. I once I got into that zone, I was able to work much reduced hours, but because of my focus, I got a lot more done. So my lifestyle changed completely. I used to always wake up and be awake for hours in the night, and I don't do that anymore. I very, very rarely get sick. If there's colds going around, I mean, it's happening right now. We're changing over to winter here. Yeah, and everyone's got colds, and I don't pick them up. I haven't got COVID yet, and I strongly believe that all of that is to do with like my mind, because like your mind and your body are intrinsically connected, right? And I guess I started developing this desire to help other people get to where I was and kind of see the light, right? Just step off the mouse wheel for a moment and observe, right? And
before you can, sorry, let me ask a question, because it's so fascinating. You say that we have this bell curve, and the majority of people are between a 4 and a 5 and a 6, you said, so this
the depending on what study, like what country you're looking at, but most Western countries, the peak of the bell curve is around 5.5, and then the bulk of the population is kind of between 4 and 6.
But this is a very dangerous spot to be in. When you say that below a 3, it's already considered basically depression, or you're very near depression. I mean, 4 is not much difference. So the majority of the people are in a hamster wheel. They're running and are, quite, bluntly saying, close to depression.
Another thing to kind of consider, like the further you get down the scale, like let's say you're a 4. Another kind of quite serious thing about that is that your mental resilience is actually quite low. And if your resilience is quite low, when a life event happens, whether that's being dumped by your girlfriend, losing your job, not getting the promotion that you wanted, whatever those things are,
knocks you off.
It knocks you down much further. And if you kind of imagine like your resilience is going along a certain level, that's like your well-being. When your resilience is quite low, you will dip down much lower, and then you possibly could go into that depressed state. You go down much lower, but also it takes you much longer to get back to where you was before. Whereas if you have a higher resilience, let's say your resilience is say 7 out of 10, some of those things that would have knocked you down maybe don't even affect you at all. Your gut doesn't. But if they are quite major events, like losing a job or something like that, you will only come down a smaller amount and you'll get back a lot quicker as well. It'll be a quicker path.
Fascinating. Let's shift gear a little bit. This show is primarily watched by executives, by business people, business leaders. And what I see in the business world, talking to friends, talking to clients, and there's a high amount of people who are really on the edge of burnout. They're on the edge of, almost depression. They are on this hamster wheel, which, as you said before, they don't see a way out. They're just running and running, counting the years before they retire. And then they think, okay, I only have to make it through retirement, and then my life will change. But as we just discovered, if you don't have a plan B, if you don't have a purpose, then suddenly you step out of this hamster wheel and then there's nothing. I mean, looking at your story and what you learned in the last decade or so on reading all these books and going into this topic. What should they do? I mean, first of all, and what I think often it's important to first identify, you have to be clear which situation are you in, you know? I mean, many of them, they don't realize that they are on this hamster wheel, yeah? So what should business leaders do if they see people in this kind of situation? What is the strategy? What can they utilize to, first of all, make people aware and then help them, you know? Because it's our responsibility for our staff, our teams to help them be mentally well, you know, and strive and not fall into this rabbit hole and going to the left side of the bell curve, you know?
Absolutely. I think there's a few really, really important things for people to understand about workplace well-being, especially things like burnout. So, first of all, you mentioned that what do you do when you see people in this situation? The thing is you don't see the only people that you will really see in this situation are the tip of the iceberg, right? According to the latest research coming out of places like, you know, Gartner, Gallup, the estimates are that depending on what industry you're in, on average, around 70% of all employees are experiencing stress and burnout at work, right? 70%. You know, don't take my word for it. You know, all you CEOs and leaders out there, go and do the research, right? Start visualizing that as, imagine you as a farmer and you had, you know, a crop of barley or something, and that is producing your income, right? If you was to look at that field of barley and see that it was mostly withering, you would do something really, really quickly, wouldn't you? Yeah. Right? Another analogy is, you know, us guys, we love our cars, right? Imagine you've got, like, say, a V8 car, right? And you think, oh, that's not feeling quite right. Right, so you take it to like an engine tuner or a mechanic, and they say, "Oh, it's only firing on like 4 cylinders or 5 cylinders or something," right?
Yeah, you fix it, you know.
And you'd throw money at it straight away, right? Because like you know that it's gonna be harming the car, and you know that you're not going to be getting the best performance out of it.
Yeah.
That your people are no different, right? So again, according to the, you know, latest research from the likes of Gartner and what have you, the estimates are that on the low end, right? So this is at the kind of the best performing companies that have, you know, really good wellness programs. They are still losing $2,000 for every $10,000 they're spending in salaries. Right? Yeah. The average like point is $3,600. Right? It's huge numbers. So like you've only got to, like, if you've got a company with, say, 100 people or 500 people, just multiply that by 2,000 or 3,600. It's huge numbers. And so one of the problems that exists in workplaces is that most workplaces kind of give the job of well-being to one person, or and that group very rarely has any kind of accountability in terms of kind of being able to say to the executive team, look, we need another $1 million or however much it is to put into well-being, right?
It's not tangible enough, no?
It's not tangible, and so one of the biggest things that, like, I think the number one biggest thing that any company can do to improve the well-being of their people sustainably and increasingly is to give that as a KPI to all of the divisional leaders within the company, right? So like they report on, like say if you're head of sales, right? You have to report on, how many people you've got in, how many clients you've got in the pipeline, prospects in the pipeline, how many new sales you've got, all of these figures, right? But you don't have to report on the well-being of your people, which is directly influencing all of those numbers, right? Yeah. So if you was responsible for that, let's just run with this, right? I'm basically the VP of sales, and one of my KPIs is the well-being of my team, and through whatever measurement techniques I use, I can see that the well-being of my team is only 5 out of 10, whereas in the marketing team, it's 6.5 out of 10, right? I have now got an interest in working out, well, why is it 5 out of 10? And what can I do? Right? And then the well-being team are there to support that person in improving the well-being in their people. So it's not about any specific magic pill, but giving people that ownership throughout the company is the biggest thing is you can do, because you've got a whole bunch of people at executive level that have an interest in driving up basically it's your mental fitness is the number one driver for growth and performance, period. If you look at the World Economic Forum and the future of work and the top skills that are required, they nearly all of them are to do with your mind. Creative problem solving, creativity, innovation, empathy. There's a whole bunch of skills, I forget what they call it, emotional regulation or what have you. There's a whole bunch of these skills, and this is where you've got to say, right, okay, well, if my competitors have a workforce that is, say, on average a 6 out of 10, and we're currently a 5 out of 10, that competitor will outperform them across all areas, right? And the further, and this is where anybody in a leadership position that starts front-footing and what I call leading well-being, they will be the ones that in, say, 2 or 3 years' time will have a very, very distinct competitive advantage.
Well, I would argue, the first thing is they should start leading themselves, start working on their own mental health, to be an example, and then help their team. I would also go that far as saying, hey, success is sort of 80% psychology, as 80% mental wellness and fitness, and 20% strategy. Yeah. So, but the leadership starts with being a role model. The leadership starts with taking care of themselves. Yeah, and there is, I would argue, also a big need, first of all, to identify and to accept that this is important, first of all, for themselves as a leader, and secondly, also for their team. How do you measure this KPI of mental wellness? How can you do that?
There's a number of tools. There's things like well-being surveys, which unfortunately tend to be, they can be somewhat inaccurate, and they tend to be done like only once a year. So if let's just say you do your well-being survey in October, and let's just say the previous January, there was a new leader brought in for the engineering department who is having a really negative effect on the team. If you don't have that survey until October, you're not going to see the data till November. So you've lost nearly a whole year, right? So you need to be using tools that are a lot simpler. These well-being surveys are usually very long, verbose things that's basically another thing for your people to do that they just don't want to do. You need to use some kind of monitoring tool that employees don't mind using, right? So obviously, when selecting a tool like that, make sure that you involve your people, right? But yeah, there's a number of tools where you can just keep a like, I like to call it like you're keeping a temperature check on your people's well-being every week of the year, and by doing that, you can not only see how the overall well-being of your people are going, but you can also see where you've got a problem. So let's go back to that engineering department. In a very short period of time, you'll see that the well-being in the engineering department has dropped. And you're not going to ignore that, right? So that's why that measurement is so important.
Yeah, you say you do this on a continuous basis, not just once or twice a year on a continuous basis. And once you know, okay, there's something not right in my department. Yeah, this KPI is not where it should be. First of all, what do you do at this special moment? But also, what can you do throughout the whole year, to constantly support your team? Yeah, we shouldn't only react when something is off. We should implement strategies and tactics to keep our team always on a mentally high level.
So I think there's a couple of quite simple things, really. Like, one thing is to basically invest in a toolbox of resources that people can actually call upon and use. Like, so just take, like, say, apps like EverYellow or something like that, right? I mean, you've got meditation apps like Headspace, and that won't be for everyone. EverYellow won't be for everyone. So one thing, like what some employers do is they even give their employees like a well-being budget that they can spend on what suits them. They can maybe, this person here might join a gym and pay for a meditation app. The next person might do other things with it. So the first thing is actually to create a toolbox of tools that, and here's the most important thing of all. You have to find tools that have high degrees of both efficacy and engagement. There's no point giving people tools and tick. Like, I speak to so many say, we don't want to have a discussion because we already use this app, right? Well, number one, it's just one app, so not everyone's going to use it anyway. And also the app that they're using, I know that over 96% of people would have deleted that app within 2 weeks, right? So it's if I was a CEO of a large company, I would really be questioning, where is my well-being budget going? So just as an example, a lot of well-being leaders, they love to do things that are quite touchy-feely. And so, for example, they'll put on things like workshops and things like that. They're one of the worst investments that you can do because they cost a lot of money. They only apply to a small number of people. Often the people that go to them are getting out of work rather than... So the people that actually need to go to them either don't go to them because there's not a space, or they don't go to them because they feel vulnerable, right? And even if the room was filled up with people that would really get benefit from it, I can't remember what the actual statistics are on workshops, but it's something incredible, like 90% of the knowledge given in that room doesn't walk out the door. And then if you then measure in, say, 2 weeks' time, how much of that knowledge is still in people's heads and how many people are actually actioning anything that was taught, it's like less than 2%. It's like it's such a poor thing to do. So if it was my company, I would be really looking at how my wellbeing budget is being spent. I would be making sure that, I would be doing my own surveys, like, so just talk to people. So are you using any of the tools in our wellbeing toolkit? I'll almost bet you money now, if they ask 100 people, they'll, most of them will say no. So that's one thing, is providing the resources. But the other thing really is around getting back to kind of what we spoke about earlier, is leading well-being, right? Is, talking to your people about, oh yeah, like I've been using this app, I'll use my one, for example. I've been using this app, EverYellow, and it's actually made me feel really good. Why don't just give it a go, and just destigmatize it, right? And just make it more normal that your people are doing things. Another top thing to do, and this is kind of one that might be difficult for people to get their head around, is get your people to take small breaks every hour during the day, just so that they get a mental break, they get a chance to move their legs, get some oxygen going, go outside and smell the fresh air, right? Even things like, and this is like neurologically proven, even things like taking a few minutes to, say, focus on a distant object when you're normally just focusing on a screen, it has a positive effect. And various research studies have shown that a break of, I think it's between 10 and 15, it sounds a lot, right? But a break between, say, 10 and 15 minutes every hour results in a 20 to 30% net gain in the productivity during the day. Now, I know that certain people, certain trades, they probably can't do that. You can't do that if you're like a train driver. You need to be alert for the whole, But, especially things like, office environments, restaurants, whatever those things are, where you can safely take a 10-minute break and it's not going to make everything else fall over, right? If you have a company where that's true, then that's another very low cost way of actually starting to improve well-being.
Definitely. I mean, I see this, for example, in different school systems, like you are from New Zealand. They do a lot of sports in the lunch break, where they get kids out, they move, they get fresh air, and increases their ability to focus, and increases or decreases, I would argue, the aggressiveness sometimes in schoolrooms. You move and then you keep this aggression down. I completely agree. I also see this, especially in the English-speaking world. I work a lot with clients from UK, and often they go to the gym on the lunch break. Just go out, they exercise for an hour, and they are fresh and energized for the rest of the day. Before we talk about your app, I would love to learn more about EverYellow, what it does. I would argue a bit. I mean, maybe it's a different concept, but some people are open to workshops. They actually like workshops. I mean, I'm running this kind of workshops, yeah. So, but we've seen, if you do this on a continuous basis, we've seen quite a big improvement in well-being, or in satisfaction, happiness between the team. But I agree. It's not a one-off thing. You need to be constantly helping them. You need to be constantly checking in. So I normally have a system where I run 3 workshops in a year, and then throughout the year I keep in touch. We do check-in calls every 2 weeks to really keep this momentum going. But on the other hand, you have apps which people can use to check in, maybe to play games, to do whatever to increase their mental well-being. And you developed EverYellow, a mental wellness app. And maybe you share some of the concept, what is behind, and how can companies use this app to help their employees?
I guess what I'll start off with by saying is, like, why the hell would I create an app when there's already hundreds of them out there already, right? And what basically happened was when I was going through my journey, I actually tried a whole bunch of these apps and none of them worked for me, right? And I thought it was my fault. I thought it was something because of me. Then later on, I discovered that there's multiple research studies that have been done where they've looked at the efficacy of these apps, and they can't find anything that suggests that they actually help in any meaningful way. There was another one of these studies done just last year, in fact, involving 50,000 people. They split them between like a control group and the group that are, and they got these 50,000 people to use one of the top 30 mental well-being apps, and the other group, they didn't really know what they was being tested on, but there was kind of, there was no difference between the two groups, the ones that did nothing and the app users. And then I came across another piece of research that basically said that even the best of these apps, only 3.6% of people still use those apps after 14 days. The rest of them, they're deleted. And some of the apps are, say, less than 0.5%. That was really my wake-up call that said, look, there are literally billions of people in the world that are in that kind of middle space, and yet there's nothing out there that's helping them. So I then conducted some research to say, well, what is it about these apps that don't work? And it was I saw a common theme of they're tedious, they're not something you want to spend time with. A lot of people find them quite demanding. Like even something like, I was actually quite surprised, over 70% of people, like even though meditation apps are the most common well-being apps, over 70% of people will not do meditation, right? For a whole bunch of reasons. Some people see it as too old school. Some people see it as religious. Some people just simply don't have the time or space to do it, right? And that's really where I kind of thought I'd like to tackle this differently. I come from a design and critical thinking background. And so what EverYellow basically is, it's a mental fitness app, which develops mental fitness in all of us. And it uses a process called mental conditioning, right? Now, mental conditioning is something that's happened throughout our lifetime. Every experience or encounter we ever had, it either laid down a bit of data in our brain, and often that data is wrong. Like I because of my abusive childhood, for most of my adult life, I believed that my parents disliked me and they didn't want me, right? And really, when I challenged that, I found it out not to be the case. So we over a lifetime, we fill our brains up with all of this data that's incorrect.
Oh, subconscious mind.
Yeah, and also we have this programming that, like, for example, let's just say you had a bad accident in a certain situation and there was a certain smell in the air. that if you, without even knowing it, your brain has got a pathway that says when this smell is present, you're probably going to get hurt, right? And so that creates the that software and the data is the operating system that is making you who you are. So what EverYellow is it basically harnesses that same process, but in a positive way. So what happens is when you download EverYellow, we ask you a certain number of questions so that we really get to understand who you are and what your kind of well-being profile is. And then we download to your app your own personalized set of content. And then every day, even if it's only for 10 minutes, you just press play and you listen to these audio experiences that basically blend these personalized narrations against a backdrop of music and sound. And all of that content that you're hearing is based on solid scientific principles. It's taken us like over 2 years to develop. Got thousands and thousands of pieces of content. But what basically people are saying is that they really enjoy spending time with it. We have people say, like, I only intended to listen for 10 minutes, but an hour and a half later, I'm still listening. And the other thing people are just saying, like, I've only been listening for a few days and I can already feel the difference. I'm thinking differently, and even my friends or family have noticed and things like that. And so that's basically it. It looks really simple on the outside. There's a lot going on under the hood, but the really great thing is that you can use it anytime, anywhere. Like you can even turn down the vocals and use it while you're as long as it's safe to do so, you can use it while you're like working and things like that.
So you basically sort of reprogram your subconscious mind. You weed out all this negativity which we stored after the decades of our lives, and replace it with positive viewpoints, with positive anchors, which helps us to make the right decisions, see life in a different way.
Yeah, so the operating system that you have in your mind, it controls your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, and your physiology, right? So all of those things improve when you start developing your mental fitness. And some of it is around, like, for example, once you've started listening to EverYellow, you might have, say, a thought come into your mind, like, just take my case, oh, my mum and dad don't like me, and then I can think, hold on, how is that really true? I'd like to spend a moment thinking about it, right? I could, let's take another example. I'm driving down the road, blissfully unaware of the last 5 seconds I've just driven, and then from nowhere a car cuts across me, right? And I get angry, I bib on my horn, I gesticulate out the window, shout, you idiot, all that kind of stuff. I go into work and I'm trembling and I'm telling everyone, oh, guess what happened to me on the way to work, all that. And it can ruin your day. When you start reworking your mind, when that happens, in the early days, you might start to have the same reaction, but then you can go, hold on a minute. I don't actually know that person was actually trying to harm me. We'd got no idea why he did that, but there could be any number of reasons, but I'll not react, right? And then the more you start doing that, it gets to a point where when something like that happens, it literally doesn't resonate. maybe just pull on the brakes, but then you'll just carry on going. There's literally no value in putting any brain power to it whatsoever, you know? So really, yeah, it's about removing the clutter, removing the negative programming, start put in like more, I would say constructive rather than positive, you know, like for me, I don't really have an issue with the word positivity, but for me, it kind of suggests like, oh, let's look at the world through rose-tinted glasses, you know, and let's be positive. Yeah, but I like the word constructive, where like whatever happens, you respond in a constructive way. You have constructive emotions rather than negative ones.
Hey, Alan, you shared a lot of, this was a very deep conversation, and I'm really glad that you opened yourself up and shared all the story from your childhood and how it led to where you're right now. Is there anything you said, hey, this is something which I really want to share as a closing remark?
What I would be saying to people, like just using this analogy of the mouse wheel, right? Have an open mind that you are on the mouse wheel, right? And I challenge you, and it won't cost you any money, right? But yeah, I challenge you to download the EverYellow app and just listen to it for 1 week, like even if it's just 10 minutes a day, right? If you don't like the accents or whatever, turn down the voices so you're mainly listening to the music, because the voices will still be getting through. And I challenge you to do that and just see if you have that shift happen. Just give it a go. Have an open mind. Give it a week. See what happens.
I definitely will give it a go. Thank you so much, Alan. And you do a very important job. You have an important mission, and I can only wish you a lot of success. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for tuning into the High Performance CEO Show. I'm your host, Sebastian Schieke, and it's been a pleasure serving you. Please subscribe to our show on your favorite platform and leave us a review. Your support helps us reach more listeners and create a bigger impact. Check out our website, sebastianschieke.com, for additional resources. Until next time, be bold, be exceptional, be outstanding, be a leader.